I want to thank you for joining us for today's webinar where we will be diving into the SalesPad Mobile application. This application is intended to extend your business out into the field, giving you access to customers, contacts, inventory levels, as well as most recently we've added a feature to manage dispatch. So if you have to execute service orders out in the field or traditional deliveries, we're going to give you visibility of that as well. My name is Matt Greierbill. I'm a sales engineer here with SalesPad, and as we go through this demo, please feel free to use the question box to shoot us any questions that you have throughout, and we'll make sure that we go through and address those at the tail end of this. So talking about SalesPad Mobile, this is, as I mentioned, conveniently designed to help you manage customers, inventory, and sales documents on the go if you're in the field. This will run on both the iOS platform as well as Android. Here are just a couple examples of some of the hardware that you can deploy with this application. We see here an iPad mini as well as an iPhone. For today's demo, I'm actually going to be using an iPad mini with a Honeywell sled that you might notice throughout the demonstration. And that sled is available. It adapts the mobile device. It ruggedizes it a little bit for more rugged applications out in the field or in the warehouse. Just thinking about SalesPad Mobile and the specific applications that it's perfect for, I've just highlighted a few here. The first one being service-based companies, so HVAC companies, landscaping, plumbing, electrical contractors. This is going to give you insight into the orders, inventory levels. You can execute those orders out in the field, capture signatures, print documents, forward those through the workflow queue. So it's great for the service-based companies. Also outside sales teams. So if you have a traditional distribution company, but you also have an outside sales arm that's in the field that may be phoning in orders now or faxing them in or emailing them, the mobile application is going to allow them to directly enter those into the SalesPad GP environment, as well as look up inventory levels and what's available to sell. There's also insights available for the outside sales reps that can be very useful while you're on site with the client, such as their previous order history. So if you wanted to know how much of this item they've ordered in the last few months, you can actually look up that historical information from the mobile device. There's also access into inventory levels. So if you want to know what you have available to commit to this customer while you're talking to them, you have visibility of both on hand and available quantities that you can still sell. There's also an additional CRM function. So if you're capturing you have a conversation going on, you want to make sure you capture that and you don't lose that intelligence. The mobile application has a place to store all of that information and make that visible where you can pull that up at a later date. Another big thing is trade shows. So if you're, again, a traditional distribution environment or even service companies, but you have a series of different events that you attend throughout the year, and you want to be able to look up customer information, capture those notes, documenting the different discussions you're having, or even enter new quotes or orders that they may place at the trade show. This is going to help facilitate that with the mobile application. Additional functionality that we recently added will support dispatch and delivery companies. So if you maintain your own fleet of vehicles and you're dispatching those with either service technicians or delivery drivers, we're going to allow you to define drivers and vehicles, assign sales documents in a route, and then view those routes from the mobile application, where you can then execute those, capture signatures for the orders that are being delivered or the service that's being performed, and then forward those documents on through and update the status on the back end. So if you have a scheduler or someone who manages the dispatch, they can see all of this activity on the back end desktop as it's being performed out in the field. So we'll kind of cover that as well. So let's talk next about the SalesPad mobile features, and then we'll go into a live demonstration and we'll get to see all of these in action. The first thing is just a general customer lookup. So we have the ability to access all of the different customer records in the SalesPad GP environment. Along with that, we can actually look up the contact details as well, and then we can call out of our mobile device directly to that contact or update that contact record if their email has changed. Integrated into the customer lookup and the customer card within the mobile application is also the CRM feature that I mentioned. So if you're on site and you need to capture a pertinent note that you want to be able to call up and view at a later date, you don't want to lose that intelligence that you gathered while you're on site, we do have that CRM functionality to allow you to capture that kind of information. Another thing that's very useful is the sales history. So both for items and customers, you can see the different sales histories. So if you want to know while you're on site how much of a particular item a customer's purchased from you in the past, you can access and pull up that information to view. Another thing is, big thing is sales document entry. So if you want to create quotes, orders out in the field, we're going to allow you to do that, and we give you several different ways to add items, whether it be a single item, multiple items. We also have an integrated feature called Quick Pick, where if you want to categorize your items with images that are associated with each one of those categories, we'll allow you to build that out and make the order entry side very simple from a mobile device. Another thing that we do is sales document forwarding. So once you've captured that order, put it in the system, what's the next logical queue that should move to? Does it need to go back to the home base, to accounting to make sure that the margins are accurate before we move it onto the fulfillment process? Or do we want that to dump right into the fulfillment process and to have our warehouse immediately perform the pick and pack operation on that? We have some flexibility there to forward the documents through the queue. Another big thing is signature capture. So if you're out in the field, you can actually have your mobile device be a signature capture device as well, where you can have sign off and approval on an executed order out in the field. And then, as I mentioned, dispatch is new functionality that we've added through an extended module, where if you have service technicians or certain vehicles that you want to schedule orders against, whether it be a service order or a delivery order, we're going to allow you to schedule those against vehicles and drivers, and then pick those up in a route view from the mobile device, where you can check in, check out, update the status, and then also capture the signature, verifying that the delivery has been made from the customer. The last point I want to make before we jump into the live demonstration is that we also have offline mode. And this is kind of big, because if you're out in the field and connectivity is an issue with a Wi-Fi network, or maybe you're walking through a customer's warehouse and they don't have Wi-Fi out in the warehouse, or they have a metal roof that's blocking your connection, you're still going to be able to operate in the mobile application and then sync that up after you've completed those activities and gotten back to a Wi-Fi connection. So you're not limited by the reach of your Wi-Fi and data networks. So now we're going to transition to the demo portion. And again, as we go through this, if you see some functionality that you may have questions on, please feel free to use that question box, and we'll make sure we get to those questions as we wrap this up today. I've got my credentials all plugged in here, so I'm going to go ahead and sign in. And when you sign in, you're taken to the home screen, which basically has the different navigation points that you can go to. So you can see we've got contacts, customers, dispatch, inventory, sales documents, and then also the sales monitor. So we'll just kind of go through this one by one here. So going into the contacts, you have it default to a search box. So if you know the contact you're looking for, I'll just plug in Bob here. It will drill down to the subset that is based on the search criteria there. So you can see that I pulled back Bob Smith and then also Bob Fitz from Aaron Fitz Electrical. So as I select the contact, you can see that it will prompt you with a message to either dial out to that contact, edit the contact, or go to that contact card. If I go to the contact card, this will open up the different address properties of that user, the main address, and then also I have some additional navigation points down here at the bottom, including CRM. And this is what I mentioned earlier. So if you're out in the field, you're having a discussion with a client, you have a note that you want to make sure you don't forget about, we have this CRM tab on the contact as well as on the customer level. So when you select it, it brings you to the notes. And this is not only viewing notes that you've captured in the field from your mobile device, but also anything that the CSRs may have entered on the contact record from the desktop application as well. So that communication goes both ways. So you can see all of my different notes. If I want to add a new note, I can go ahead and move my cursor there to the new note, brings up my keyboard. And this also supports voice note entry, so I just wanted to make a note of that as well. So you can go ahead and enter your note, save that, and return once you're done. Moving on to customers next, same kind of concept. You have your search grid that defaults to, so you can plug in your customer name, and I'll go back to Aaron Fitz Electrical, and I can pull up the customer that way. Or I can just do a blank search and bring all of my customers in and scroll through them to find the particular customer that I might be looking for. I'm going to go back and just go to the Aaron Fitz Electrical customer card and show you what that looks like. So once I've selected my customer, brings in the property information, then I also have my buttons where I can create the sales documents. So in my mobile application, I have the invoice, order, and quote turned on, so I can create all three of those. We also have the ability to add a contact right from the customer record as well. And again, as I mentioned, the CRM feature carries over to the customer record, not just the contact. So if you want to apply this to the customer in general, you can do that as well. We also have additional document information, and I'll move my mouse here so you can kind of see where I'm going to. So the documents, this is going to show you all of the sales orders, returns, invoices that have been generated for this particular customer. You can also go back and look at the historical docs as well on the history tab. And then we have this additional ellipsis here, which has several other features that you can navigate to. So if you want to know, for example, the credit limit and how close they are approaching to it, or just general aging information, you have access to the AR tab here. We also have sales graph information. You can see we can access the contacts. We can also have general customer notes. So, not pertaining to your CRM interactions, but just a general note that you want to apply. And these could also be prompted as pop-up notes in the desktop as well. So you could add those types of notes. We also have year-to-date information, kind of aggregate view of the past 4 years, margin percentages. You could also go into user-defined fields, so if you have additional attributes relative to the customer that you want to track, you can go into those user-defined fields. Another feature is items, so if you want to look at your previous sales to this customer broken down by item rather than sales document, you can do that as well from the item search here. So lots of functionality there from the customer card. So I'm going to navigate back to the home screen here, and we're going to actually skip over dispatch and jump down to inventory. When we get to dispatch, I really want to kind of dive into that a little bit deeper and show you the relationship between the desktop and what you're seeing in the mobile, and we'll spend a lot of time on that. But let's just transition now to inventory and kind of look at that feature here. So when I go into inventory, again, I have a search box here. I can enter in a specific item. If I know the item number, and I can search that out, pull up that item card. I can look at certain things like what's on hand, what's allocated, what's available to sell. If I have a next expected receipt date, I have some visibility of that. I also have some visibility of the pricing, so current cost, what my list price might be, as well as description information as well. So in addition to kind of the property information, we also have these navigation points on the bottom, just like we saw on the customer record, where we can get additional information. So looking at warehouse first, if I drill into that, this will display all of the different sites that I have this stock located at. I can see within each site what's allocated, what's on hand, what's back ordered, what's available to sell. So we're going to get tremendous insight to our inventory levels from the field. So I can also look at previous purchases, so the purchase order date, the vendor it was purchased from, the quantity that was purchased. I also have sales records, so whereas before we were looking at sales records specific to a customer, this is item-based, so this is sales of that item specific to the organization. So this is going to be for multiple customers, whoever you've sold this item to. And you have access to, the document number, the unit of measure that was sold, the quantity that was sold, as well as the unit price. So you can see all of that information here from this grid. And then just like the customer record, we have this ellipsis down here in the lower right-hand corner that we can use to navigate to additional information. So if we want to see historical information on the sales of that item, we can access that. If we want to have, take additional notes, we have a notes entry section, and then we also have visibility of the pricing. So this is looking at our standard pricing from the item price maintenance, so you can see the different levels that we're selling this at, what the price is. If there's a quantity breakdown, we can see those different price groups there. Going back to the home menu, we'll go over to sales documents now. And again, we have the search grid here. I can plug in a specific document number or just hit search and it will bring back all of my sales orders. And you can see these are all the invoices, all the returns, all the orders quotes that are in my system currently. And I can pull those documents up and look at specific line items for each one of those documents here on the mobile device. I'm going to go back to the home screen now, and we'll look at the sales monitor next. And just like you've seen previously on the desktop side, this is going to show you all of the different workflows, and you can pull those up and drill into the specific batches so you can see all of your orders and where they're at relative to the fulfillment process as a whole. So I'll go into the DC order here I have set up, and you can see that once I've selected my order type, I can now see the breakdown of the different batches and the document count at each one of those stages, and then the dollar value that's associated with that. So right now in my order queue, I can see I have 31 documents in the picking. That represents just over $168,000 in total order value. I can drill into that picking queue and see the specific documents that are in that picking queue, and I can actually open those up and look at the line item details for each one of those orders as well. So if you're ever curious, if you've placed an order previously, you're on the road, you want to drill into, where's that order at relative to being fulfilled and shipped to the customer, you can pull up all of those different workflows, identify the order, and see exactly what stage it's at relative to the fulfillment or invoicing or quoting process. So now that we've kind of covered all the modules, I want to go back and not only create an order and show you what that looks like in the item lookup, but then I also want to spend, as I mentioned, some time talking about dispatch and how we can execute a series of orders that need to be either delivered or maybe they're tied to service that needs to be performed out in the field. So first, going into customer records to generate a new order and show you what that looks like, I'm going to go into Aaron Fitz Electrical's card here from mobile. I'll open that up. And then, as you saw previously, we have the buttons to create the different documents, the different sales documents. So I'm going to go ahead and create an order. And once I select that, it's going to bring me to the initial screen for sales document entry, which just verifies the document properties. So, what's the required ship date of this? Does the customer have a PO number that you want to plug in there? Who's the salesperson if you want to verify or update that? Currency, what's their price level? So all of the basic property, high-level property information, that's where you verify and define that at. So once I hit save, it takes me to the actual document itself where I can begin adding items, and you can see that it actually has a document number already assigned to it. So you can see up at the top I've got my bill to, my ship to, my basic properties that I defined on the previous screen, and then I have several ways to add line items. I can add a single item, I could add multiple items, I can add recents that they've purchased. If the customer has default item groups that they purchased previously, we can load defaults in. If we want to arrange it like a catalog, we can have catalog items. And then, as I mentioned, we also have this quick pick feature to basically assign items to your. And then, like I said, we have this quick pick feature where you can actually assign images to your categories and then drill down through those images to get to the item level, and we'll kind of show what that looks like as well. So just kind of going through these briefly, if we add a single item, we have this item lookup feature where I can bring in my full items list, filter down to a specific item by entering it in or scrolling through the menu of available items there, search that out, add the item that way. Once I bring that item in, I can update the quantities, hit accept. So that's adding a single item. We also have the ability to add multiple items. So when you drill into the multiple item add, that will display all of your different items with descriptions. You can hit the plus or minus button on each one of these to add quantities of it. So if I wanted to add, 5 of these, item 10002, the button head screws, but also 5 of the quarter AN washers that go along with those. I can go ahead and just hit those plus buttons and add 2 items at the same time. So now when I add items, we'll actually see 2 additional items come over onto the order entry here. If I ever want to go back and delete an item, I can drill into that item, and you can see that we have the delete item option, and we can actually remove that from the order if we've made a mistake. So far we've seen adding a single item, adding multiple items, and then I want to kind of dive into the quick pick, which is kind of a nice new feature, which, as I mentioned, will allow you to assign images to the different categories of items and then drill in from those images to the specific item that you want to add to the sales document. So if I select quick pick, this will display out my different categories of items that I can add to the document, and then I can drill into those to add specific items to it. So if I go into fasteners, for example, and as you can see, this is kind of a hardware scenario where I've got fasteners, seals, casters, tools, and then cleaning supplies. So once I've drilled into fasteners, you can see that I'm at my line item level now where I can add the specific items to my sales document. So I'll go ahead and add 5 of these socket head screws, and then also 5 of these quarter 20 by 1 inch button heads. So once I've added those quantities, I can just check them off there with the 2 check buttons just to verify that those are the items I'm adding. And then I'll add items, and you can see that those are now added to the sales document as well. So just kind of covering a couple of the different ways, or a few of the different ways to add items to the order itself. So lots of flexibility there. Once I've built out my order, I can go ahead and save this. And once I save it, you'll notice that the orange triangles in the corner of all of the different property headers are going to be removed because it's now taken out of edit mode. We've got the items locked in. I can always go back to edit mode if I want to add more, but now I've got the document pretty much looking good. It's created. I got the items I want, the quantities there. So now I can go ahead and move on. Now I want to point out an additional feature, and that's the menu button up here in the upper right-hand corner. As you go through each of these screens, this menu will change with different options. And from the order side itself, when you hit the menu button, you can actually go in and do a couple different things with this document. So, for example, if I wanted the customer to sign off on this, I can go into the sign document feature, and that will actually convert the mobile device to a signature capture pad where the customer can then add their signature. I can save that, and that will now be on the printed form of that document whenever I print that. If I go back in the menu, there's some other options. I can forward this to the next queue in the workflow, and that will prompt me and ask me if I want to forward this. I'll go ahead and hit yes, and that will move it to the next queue in my workflow. And in my case, I move these orders directly to picking if I do have stock available to sell. So that's now in the picking queue. Other things that you can do, printing. So if I wanted to print this off on site with the client, I can go into my print menu. That will bring up a selection of the report type that I want to generate. Since this is an order, I'm going to go ahead and stick with the order type document. And once I've selected that, it will bring up a print preview. And then if I have a Bluetooth printer, I can go ahead and select that printer to go ahead and print that document from. So there's my print preview. I can toggle over to select printer, select the number of copies that I want to print off, and then provide that to the customer on site. So now that we've covered contacts, customers, the inventory lookup, sales document, sales monitor, and then also creating a new order from the customer card, I want to kind of dive into dispatch a little bit deeper here. So when I go into dispatch, you'll notice that it says the route number up at the top here. So you can actually assign different routes to different devices. So it's just going to show you your specific route that you need to deliver. And then I want to kind of dissect this screen a little bit and kind of explain what's going on. So each one of these items here is a delivery that I need to make. With the address information, I have the ability to check in, check out when I arrive at that location. I have the ability to also look at the sales document that I need to either execute if it's a service or deliver if it's a delivery. And then I also have the ability to look at the location of this delivery on a map and actually map from my device to that destination. Another nice feature is as you go through and you check in and check out of these deliveries, this status color will update on the mobile device. This will also update on the desktop dispatch view so you can see the progress of your delivery drivers out in the field as they make each one of these stops. So you can see, in my case, black means it's delivered, red means it's in progress, the light blue means it's still pending. So right now I'm checked into stop number 2. If I check out of stop number 2, you can see that it moves that status to now black because it's completed, and then I can move on to delivery number 3. So when I check in at delivery number 3, it moves from the light blue, which means pending, to the red, which is in progress. So as you make each stop, you also have access from this screen to the document itself that you actually need to deliver. So if I hit this little icon, the document icon, it will toggle over to the document itself where I can see the line item details that need to be delivered. I can also do things like you've seen previously, such as get a signature from the client. So I can go into sign document, and again, that will convert my mobile device to a signature capture pad where I can go ahead and get that signature, save it, indicating the approval or confirmation that this delivery has been made. Then I can go back to my dispatch route and go ahead and check out, move on to the next one. These push pins will also show you a map view, so if you want to map from your current location to the next stop, you can go ahead and hit that push pin, go into your menu, and then you can map the fastest or the shortest route, and that will display step-by-step directions for you to get to your next stop. So that's kind of another nice feature that's built into that. So I want to take a step back outside of the mobile application for just a second to kind of show you the integration with dispatch back to desktop. So what we're looking at here, this is the vehicle board where I have total visibility of all of the different vehicles and the route stops they have throughout the day. And as you check those off from the mobile device, as we saw, from pending to in progress to complete, the light blue to the red status to the black status, all of that information is communicating back to my global dispatch board. So what we're looking at here is truck number 6 and the different stops, and you can see that each one of those different stops is now updated from the light blue to the black because those are completed. So in real time, as I'm going through on my mobile device, that's updating in real time back on the desktop here. So just to kind of recap, the SalesPad Mobile is designed to really allow you to extend your business out into the field by giving you visibility into inventory, your customers, your contacts, your sales documents and where they're at relative to the fulfillment process. And then now we've included the dispatch, which is part of the extended module that you can pick up, where you can build out routes and have those executed out in the field and monitor the progress as all of that activity occurs. Thank you again for joining us today. Again, we have the question box. Please, feel free to continue to throw questions our way. We're going to get to those in just a second as we wrap up. Again, my name is Matt Grierville, and I appreciate your time.